Hey, this is David Goldenberg from 11 Ads for Brands, and we're doing an Amazon PPC Ask Anything session. So answer your questions in the chat. The sooner the better, because we're going for just about 20 minutes to a half hour. And I want to be able to get to everybody's questions. So until we get some questions over here in the live stream, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open a little file I have with some stored questions. Okay, so question number one is, if I have a sponsored brand, okay, and I've got 3 products over here, one of them went out of stock. No, this thing is out. So should you replace that product by editing the ad? Should you pause? Should you A/B test with a different creative that has, a different set of products? What is the right approach over here when one of your products in your sponsored brand goes out of stock? And so the first thing I'll say is, under no circumstances should you edit the ad. Don't do that. I'll tell you the simple reason why. Because if you edit your ad, you won't see that in the ad name. You could edit the ad name, but basically it just makes your data a lot harder to analyze, because you can't just play around with the dates. You can only look at the dates from when you change things onwards, and that's going to be in many cases more of a pain in the neck than the benefit of saving a few minutes on making a new ad. Should you pause the ad? That is a very good question. It depends on whether that product is selling well from your ad or not. It could be, and we've seen this actually several times, where one of the products goes out of stock, but it's not necessarily the one that's selling. You have 3 products and the sales can be very skewed to just 1 or 2 of them. And so the question is, how do you find out whether or not you should pause? The answer is that you get the attributed purchases report. Okay, let me write that over here. If you want to answer that, you need the attributed purchases report. And what that's going to do for you is it will tell you which products are selling from this ad. And so if you don't see any sales coming through from that, so you can try to keep running it. I would at least change the name just to make a note when this thing went out of stock, and then you can update that when it comes back in stock. And the reason that matters is that even if this goes out of stock, it may be that these other products that are selling looked good in comparison to this one, because, for example, this one had a very high price, right? Whereas these are a little bit cheaper by comparison, or maybe the star ratings, whatever the reason may be. So it's possible that one of your products is actually a decoy, and it's just there to make the other 2 look better. You may not have done that intentionally. If you did, hats off to you. That's clever marketing. But it happens more often than people are aware. And so whether or not you pause basically depends on that. I would let it run if it was up to me, and then just check the if I've seen that in the report it's not selling, so I would just let it run. But I would check my data again in about after the 2 weeks, but not precisely in 14 days. I would give a few more days, because you get lagging sales that get attributed back as if they'd happened on the same day as the click. So you might get a click on a Monday and the sale happens on the Wednesday. but they report the sale as if it had happened on the Monday. But if you check on Tuesday, because it hasn't happened yet, you won't see that. So it'll look like you have higher ACOS. So you need to allow a few days for the ACOS dust to settle, so to speak, for the lagging sales to come in. So I would usually check something like this in, let's say, another 17, 18 days, looking at the 14 days following. What about running an A/B test? Should you do that instead, right? Or in addition to letting this continue to run, and what you would do is basically you would have another ad. Is this visible? Yep. Okay. And you've got just a different set of products over here. So instead of ABC over here, you've got, let's see, F, B, C, right? And so you're basically testing the effect of that one product on the sales in your campaign. So that would be another way to approach this. And essentially, when you're scaling, you need to have two things in mind. One, that you're not losing sales from existing campaigns. And this happens all the time. People don't realize. They think, well, if a campaign is making sales, then it should always just continue around the same amount, give or take. And they don't realize how dramatically different the reality is from that. Sales spike up and drop down all the time, and you need to monitor that. That's, let's get into that now. I was going to say it's a separate topic, but that's a huge point in how to scale your Amazon PPC ads. Okay. So if you want to scale, one of the main things you need to keep your eye on is what I call the money bucket. And the money bucket is basically a concept that if you have a bucket, we'll call this your weekly sales, and you're, filling it with dollar bills is all great. Yeah. Now, it's all fine and dandy until the day where, oh no, you've got a little crack. And then, what do you know? The money is leaking out of your bucket. So, how do you make sure that doesn't happen from your weekly sales bucket, your money bucket, right? And the way that you want to monitor this is by taking your bulk file, and you're going to import from the bulk file, you copy paste the targets, the IDs, okay? You're going to have your ID, you're going to have the target. This could be a keyword, an ASIN, a category. If it's a keyword target, you also want to have the match type. Okay. And you're going to import the sales. To keep things very simple, we don't include the ACOS. You could do it, but it just makes things a bit more voluminous. Leave that for another time. So once you've got that done, okay, so it's going to look like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Then your sales, sorry, it continues further out over here, but basically you're going to see each week. That's why you need the bulk operations file for this. It's going to show you week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, right? And you're going to see those numbers over here. You can use Excel, has a little built-in feature to angle text, 45 degrees, whatever. And so you'll see, this week we made, let's say, $1,000. Then it was 900, and then it was 950, and over here it went 400. 400. What the heck, We were doing close to $1,000 a week. Why did we lose 50% of the sales? So this is something you need to be on top of, and it happens very frequently. So if you're not monitoring that, then your money bucket might be empty and you're making new campaigns, adding new keywords, and you don't even realize that, in fact, you're just replacing lost sales, and that's why you're kind of treading water and not managing to grow. Now, what's the problem with this? That in many cases, the money bucket varies just based on seasonality and not so much based on our inputs. And that is basically, in spiritual terms, the God factor, i.e., he decides you're going to have a bit more this week, a bit less next week. And there isn't as much to do about it in those cases. So what I can recommend, if you want to scale, in that case, is if you want to stabilize, your sales, and you have products that are seasonal, and I'll tell you this, virtually every product is seasonal, even if you're not aware of it, right? It's not just, December Q4 seasonal. We worked with a guy who sold, what do you call it, for watering plants, the word's escaping me right now. Not a bucket, but the thing with a whatever. Okay. And what, people want to water their plants more in May, probably because that's when they start planting things, and they're getting back to their gardens and what have you. So if you are in a seasonal market, then one of the ways to stabilize things is to source products that are counter seasonal to each other. And this is a great tip for getting peace of mind. If you want to have more stable income from your Amazon FBA business, then if you've got something that peaks in the spring, then what you want is something else that is going to work, let's say, in the fall, right? Ideally, you've got stuff for all 4 seasons. Now, I'm not talking about doing something like you see in the fashion industry, where there's a new collection every 3 months, and now you need to shop the spring collection and the summer and the fall and the winter. I mean, yes, that probably stabilizes their income, but because they don't sell the same thing next spring and the spring after that as they sold this year or the year before, that is just a huge burden on your catalog and your SKU count. What I'm talking about is products that are going to continue to sell next year and the year after, because they're just basic things that people need. If you're selling the fashion industry, good on you. This is not really addressed to you. Okay. Now, the next big thing that may not be really obvious to a lot of people for scaling is that you need to just do a lot more. So you need more campaign types. A lot of people are just running some campaign targeting options, such as keywords and not ASINs, or keywords and ASINs only in sponsored products and not also in sponsored brands. They may be targeting using only sponsored products, but not sponsored brands, or sponsored products and brands, but not sponsored display. You need to run everything. Okay, so SP SB, that's brands, and SD. Now you also need to do all the different match types that you've got. And so that's not just exact, phrase, and broad, okay? Because in sponsored brands, you've also got broad, match, modified. In sponsored products, you've got your auto, which divides into 4 more match types, right? You've got loose match, you've got close match, you've got substitutes, you've got complements. Beyond that, you've also got, in sponsored products, ASIN, exact, and ASIN. So I'm going to write that ASIN exact and ASIN expanded. Okay, I'm going to call that XP versus just X. I'm trying to think what else. There's, oh yeah, and when you're running broad match campaigns within sponsored brands, so that is similar to your auto campaigns because they will match to an absolute bucket load of things, including terms that don't have your keywords in them at all. That's called sponsored brands broad match, as opposed to broad match modified, where you add plus signs before each word. Okay, then you need to also be using all the different formats. And those formats basically include the 3 formats within sponsored excuse me, within sponsored brands. So you've got your product collection, now called sponsored brand collection, without the word product in it. It's slightly different. You no longer have a custom image, and they write a headline for you using either AI or a garbage preset that they offer. So you have the collection format, you've got the store spotlight format, which links to 3 pages in your Amazon brand store. I hope you guys have made one by now. And you've got your sponsored brands video. Okay, so you need to be doing more. You need to be increasing, what else? Your conversion rates and your average order value. I'm going to give you guys a really simple tip on increasing your average order value. It's so funny how easy this is and how few people are doing it. Okay, this is the YouTube short on how to increase average order value in FBA in 2 minutes. Okay, you go to your product grid in your brand store builder, and it's got your products lined up nice and neat over here. And in this point over here, instead of putting the main products that match your keyword, so if we're talking about phones, right, or let me get a better thing. Let's say ferns, okay? You're selling ferns, you're selling potted plants. So over here, you've got a fern, and over here you got a fern, over here you got a fern. Over here, put fern food. Boom. You're going to find that a lot of people, depending on obviously how closely this thing matches, a lot of them are going to add that in. I got to go. We're going to call it day for now.